Imagine sitting at your desk on a Monday morning when the entire room under your feet suddenly lurches sideways. You grip the edges of your desk, watching the walls flex, waiting for it to stop. But it doesn't stop after 5 seconds, or 10 or 30. It keeps grinding for 70 solid seconds. By the time it's over, the coastline has moved, buildings have flattened, and an entire region has been thrown into chaos. Here's the chilling part. It wasn't even the fault line anyone was watching. For decades, geologists and disaster response teams in the Philippines have kept their eyes locked on the West Valley Fault. The massive geological fracture sitting directly under 10 million people in the urban sprawl of Metro Manila. Everyone has been bracing for the big one up north. But on the morning of June 8th, 2026, at precisely 7:37 a.m., Mother Nature pulled a fast one. The ground gave way somewhere completely different, nearly 500 miles south, just off the coast of Sarangani province on the southern island of Mindanao. Out on the seafloor, a massive magnitude 7.8 earthquake ripped wide open. It was officially the single strongest earthquake to hit the Philippines in 50 years. Over 60 miles away in Davao City, skyscrapers swayed like trees in a hurricane. In General Santos, a shopping mall came crashing down. And within hours of the main shock, geophysicists who had spent the previous year warning everyone about this exact kind of domino effect started asking a terrifying question. Did this monster quake just pull back the hammer on the next one? We aren't talking about some vague, hypothetical threat centuries down the road. We're talking about right now, on a locked stretch of fault line that hasn't moved since 1950 and possibly hasn't fully broken since 1918. This is the real story of the Philippine Fault System, the earthquake that just proved seismologists' worst fears right, and why this disaster isn't wrapping up. It might just be the opening act. Now, let's establish some ground rules right out of the gate. This is not clickbait doom scrolling. We aren't here to hype up fear or make wild guesses. Everything we're diving into today comes straight from verified, hard data pulled by PHIVOLCS, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, along with the United States Geological Survey, and peer-reviewed stress modeling from top-tier geophysicists who study tectonic mechanics for a living. Before we dig into the science, let me ask you a question. If you live anywhere near an active seismic zone, whether that's the West Coast, the Cascadia Subduction Zone, the New Madrid Fault Line, or anywhere else across the globe, do you actually know the name of your nearest fault and the last time it blew? Drop your answer in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious how many people keep track of the ground beneath their feet. And if you appreciate deep dive, no-nonsense breakdowns of the real geological events actively reshaping our world, hit that subscribe button. It's completely free, and it ensures you won't miss the follow-ups. Dropping a like on the video also tells the algorithm that real science matters. So let's see if we can push this one past 5,000 likes. Thank you guys, seriously, for being here. Now, let's get into the mechanics of what went down. At 7:37 a.m. local time on June 8th, 2026, the crust snapped 15 miles southwest of a quiet coastal community named Cabalanchen in Sarangani province. The rupture started deep, about 34 miles beneath the surface, tearing along the rock for roughly 70 excruciating seconds. If you've ever felt an earthquake, you know that anything past 10 seconds feels like an absolute lifetime. PHIVOLCS initially clocked the event at a magnitude 7.0, but as the seismic data flooded the monitoring stations, they quickly revised that number upward to a massive moment magnitude 7.8, a reading confirmed by the USGS. Geologically, this was a massive thrust faulting event. One colossal slab of the Earth's crust violently shoved itself up and over another along the Cotabato Trench. That's a deep subduction zone where the ocean floor of the Celebes Sea is slowly being forced onto the southern Philippines at a rate of about 2.7 inches every single year. On the surface, the violence was staggering. Western Sarangani got hammered with intensity 9 shaking, literally categorized as violent ground motion, affecting roughly 7,000 people right at the epicenter. Another 1.5 million people across General Santos City, Glan, and Palamalag were caught in intensity 8, which translates to severe destructive shaking. When you tally it all up, over 6 million people across southern and central Mindanao felt the violent shudder of this quake. In General Santos City, the structural destruction was immediate. The city hall partially collapsed. A commercial building that housed a popular Jollibee restaurant and a local radio broadcasting studio caved in. A campus building at Notre Dame of Dadianga's University was severely compromised and came down. Up in Davao City, a 36-story high-rise condo tower began swaying so violently that cell phone footage went viral across social media before first responders could even reach the harder-hit rural areas. To make matters worse, people were trapped in the rubble of a collapsed two-story school. June 8th happened to be the very first day of the new school year across the country. Over 3.2 million students across 5 administrative regions were sitting at their desks or lined up outside for morning flag ceremonies when the ground began tossing them around. Along the coast, the geography itself was literally rewritten. Across a 60-mile stretch near the towns of Glan and Jose Abad Santos, the tectonic uplift physically hoisted the coastline up to 6.5 feet out of the sea and shoved it outward by more than 600 feet. Pristine coral reefs and deep tide pools that had been submerged underwater for generations were suddenly thrust out into the open air, baking in the sun. Then came the ocean's response. A tsunami rolled across the coastline. It measured around 1.5 feet at Davao City, but surged up to 8 feet high at the town of Lebac, where official survey teams later found watermarks showing the wave had driven nearly 60 feet inland. Over in Calamansig, fishing vessels were picked up like bath toys and dumped on a dry land. On Ballot Island, the sheer hydrodynamic force of the wave tore a boulder the size of a compact car, measuring 4 feet by 2 feet by 8 feet, right off the reef flat and dragged it nearly 100 feet across the terrain. By late June, the grim reality began to settle in. The disaster had claimed 81 confirmed lives, injured more than 1,300 people, and left 31 individuals missing. When you look at the provincial breakdown, the epicenter tells the story. 33 deaths in Sarangani, 24 in South Cotabato, and 20 in Davao Occidental. In the coastal town of Glan, widely recognized as ground zero for the worst destruction, 23 people lost their lives, and an unbelievable 52 of the town's entire housing stock was either leveled or severely damaged. Right next door in Malapatan, it was even worse, with 74 of all residential structures damaged or completely ruined. Over in Jose Abad Santos, 2 massive, rain-loosened landslides swept down the mountains, killing 7 people and leaving 18 missing. One of those slides buried an entire village, known locally as a barangay, so completely that it dammed up the local river system. It created a brand new lake right where families used to live, forcing local officials to tell displaced residents that they would have to permanently relocate because the water wasn't going anywhere. Across the entire island of Mindanao, more than 113,000 homes sustained damage, with over 18,000 of them wiped off the map entirely. The economic hit has been devastating. In General Santos alone, direct property losses blew past 1 billion pesos, or roughly $20 million. And remember, Ginsan isn't just some sleepy town. It is the recognized tuna capital of the Philippines, driving massive canning facilities and cold chain shipping networks that supply seafood across global markets. 2 of its largest seafood processing giants had to completely shut down operations in the wake of the quake. In Sarangani, that dramatic coastal uplift is estimated to have wiped out a staggering 70 billion pesos, nearly $1.4 billion, and destroyed marine habitats, damaged commercial fisheries, and decimated coral ecosystems. Decades of delicate marine life were obliterated in 70 seconds. The National Department of Education reported structural damage to more than 1,000 schools, with nearly 200 classrooms reduced to rubble, tallying an immediate repair bill north of 43 million pesos on top of completely derailing the education of 3 million kids. The power grid buckled, cutting electricity to more than 800,000 homes. For separate municipalities declared official states of calamity. Philippine President Bongbong Marcos flew in on the ground to survey the ruins, promising disaster aid of 50,000 pesos to every family that lost a loved one. Now, let's step back and look at the geology because getting the scientific details right matters. Technically speaking, this June 8th event was not a rupture of the famous Philippine Fault. This happened on the Cotabato Trench. A trench is a subduction zone, an offshore boundary where one dense oceanic plate dives down under a lighter continental plate. The Philippine Fault, on the other hand, is a completely different monster. It is a 750-mile-long strike-slip fault, remarkably similar in structure and behavior to California's San Andreas Fault, that cuts straight through the spine of the entire country from northern Luzon, down through the central Visayas Islands, and deep into Mindanao. Geographically, the Philippine Fault is caught dead in the middle between the Cotabato Trench on the west and the Philippine Trench on the east. Seismologists literally describe the whole country as being stuck inside a giant tectonic vise. And that exact geological setup, trench versus fault, is why the aftermath of the June 8th quake has the scientific community on high alert. This wasn't just a single isolated disaster. It was a loud mechanical signal about the entire regional fault network. In the days following the main quake, two critical things happened simultaneously. First, by June 19th, PHIVOLCS recorded an astonishing 8,500 aftershocks. 3 of those aftershocks were magnitude 6.0 or higher, with the biggest topping out at a powerful 6.5. Second, and this is the part that should make your hair stand up, just 3 days after the main shock, renowned seismologists Dr. Rothstein and Dr. Shinji Toda published a critical report through the seismic platform Temblor. They ran what is known as a Coulomb stress transfer analysis. This is an industry-standard, mathematically rigorous modeling method that calculates exactly how the sudden shift of one earthquake transfers and redistributes massive physical stress onto the surrounding rock and neighboring faults. Their findings were chilling. A 60-mile stretch of the Cotabato Trench, sitting directly northwest of the rupture zone, had been pushed significantly closer to catastrophic failure. That specific segment of the trench hasn't had a major rupture since at least 1950, and there is strong historical evidence it hasn't let go since a massive magnitude 8.3 earthquake way back in 1918. With the trench plates colliding at roughly 1 inch every year, Stein and Toda calculated that at least 6.5 feet of unreleased tectonic slip has been silently building up in that exact seismic gap. Their projection for what will happen when that locked section finally lets go? Another massive earthquake clocking in between magnitude 7.6 and 7.8. Now, let's be completely transparent here, because real science requires intellectual honesty. The researchers explicitly noted that, strangely, aftershocks haven't actively clustered inside that specific loaded zone yet, a phenomenon they call an intriguing mystery. But the physical strain is there. The mathematics of rock mechanics don't lie. Furthermore, Stein and Toda flagged that the main Philippine Fault itself, that separate 750-mile strike-slip system, runs right along the edge of this newly intensified stress field. It sits close enough that the southernmost Mindanao segment of the Philippine Fault may have been nudged right toward its breaking point as well. To understand why scientists are sweating over this, we have to look back 14 months before this disaster, to March 28, 2025. Over in central Myanmar, a massive magnitude 7.7 earthquake ripped open near the city of Mandalay along the Sagaing Fault. The Sagaing is a major right lateral strike-slip fault running over 300 miles down the length of Myanmar. The devastation was historic. More than 5,000 people died in Myanmar alone. But the energy traveled insane distances. A high-rise tower under construction in Bangkok, over 600 miles away, completely collapsed. In Ho Chi Minh City, more than 800 miles out, 40 apartment buildings suffered severe structural cracking. That is the sheer radius of destruction a high-magnitude strike-slip rupture can unleash. And it's why a dedicated team of Filipino geologists, led by Dr. Mario Aurelio at the University of the Philippines, immediately locked in on that event. Structurally speaking, the Philippine Fault is practically an identical twin to Myanmar Sagaing Fault. They are roughly the same length, follow the exact